Project Svalbard genuinely makes me feel depressed, guys. Like, Project Svalbard is what is wrong with the whole world, right? This is why we can't have nice things. And I don't even mean that as like in a hyperbolic, I mean it actually literally. Stuff like this is why we can't have nice things. And it genuinely makes me feel depressed, and I feel sad knowing that, tax money, that my money is going to this stuff, right? And also probably your money is going to this stuff. So what am I talking about here? Well, it really frustrates me, seriously. Project Svalbard here is the next game, of course, from our beloved Dustborn developers. Dustborn, the worst game ever made. So this actually makes me sad, genuinely, right? Because this breaks what I would say is kind of like the contract we have with the government, right? Kind of the contract of how society is supposed to operate. Because the thing is that, how can you get money? How can you get founded when you have made the worst product ever? Because the latest product, right, it has sold 50 copies in total, something like that. And it's an offensive game against almost everyone. And yet, what is wrong with society when you can make a product that 99.9% of people would never buy, right? Even less than that. And it's a bad product, both mechanically wise and everything else around it, right? You make that, and yet you get more money by the government. And it's also really depressing, because it also, of course, means that the developers, right, Red Thread Games, behind Dustborn, doesn't actually have to, there's no punishment for them, so to speak. There's no actual lose in income. I mean, yes, they have less income, but they still have money enough to, make more games, right? And that also, of course, drives their craziness, right? Drives their insanity, because you don't have to care about any consequences, right? It makes them immune to consequences, but they keep getting founded by the government. It's just crazy. It drives me crazy. I hate this game so much. It hasn't even been released yet, and we all know it's going to be the worst game ever. But anyway, let's take a step back, because I am getting pissed off, right? I've been pissed off. I said in my last Dustborn video that, think about it, right? Now I know that, I always hated. If you haven't seen it, look at my first Dustborn video. We're talking about how they're scamming the Norwegian government, right? As a kid growing up, I always hated how, we had to watch this really terrible cultural movies, right? And so on. So this is my first video. Check it out. I explain all this cultural movies we have in Norway and Sweden and Scandinavia in general. And that institution then are now then paying, right, for, of course, these games. So it's the same institution, of course, they paid for Dustborn, was paying for Svalbard, obviously. But it's just come on, no one ever wanted those movies either, or whatever you did. No one ever wanted those culture stuff. I've always been against that. But it's just to the extreme, right? Because now I'm also knowing that the developer behind this game hates white people, right? He literally hates white Norwegian people, especially then, of course, males. And, my father and most men then, right, in Norway are paying higher taxes or whatever because of, Norway's oil industry and so on. So obviously, my dad or, whatever man has paid for this guy's life, right? Makes it even worse knowing that, this guy is living on tax money, 100%, my father's tax money, yet he wants my father to die, basically. He basically said it. He more or less has said it. He wants less people to be alive that are white in Norway. Yet he living purely on white man, on their money, right? And it's just crazy how, of course, the government in Norway and also the European Union are still paying for this, right? I mean, it's just insane. How can you pay for this even after all this stuff, right? And I honestly hope people, whatever, will see this video, will share this thing and talk about it. I implore you, and I know every YouTuber says that, but I want this thing to reach some serious government people here. And I know people in the government. I even talked to some people I know in the Norwegian government. They're working at different positions. I'm being have you hit this game out? This game is made by a guy that literally hates us, and he getting paid by tax money. This is actually a scandal. This should be a bigger scandal. I want this thing to be on NRK, so I wanted it to be on the actual Norwegian news. The Norwegian government has paid for like the worst game ever, made by a person that hates Norwegians, and he's getting more money to make another game. I really want this actually to get up on the news. It doesn't have to be my video now, it could be anyone's video, right? But I want this to actually be an actual issue, right? I want some politician in the country to actually address this thing, because this is getting insane, and they're still paying the money. To be fair though, talking about more here, but I want to say it here. I'm a little bit raging now, but I want to say it here though, to be fair. This money though, that this game is currently has currently received, obviously was received before Dustborn was released though, of course. That is true, okay? I have to be completely fair and honestly. Obviously the government has already given them money, before that game was released. But they're still giving them more money, right? I mean, most likely, you know what I mean? So at least at absolute best case scenario, the government has to stop funding them, right? After this absurd failure of Dustborn, and also just how, thanks to the, lack of better terms, the wokeness of Dustborn, right, has also mean that people have now gone and discovered all these terrible things that the developer has said, right? And also how they've been, stealing stuff from GTA or whatever. I don't care, okay? I know people say, no, they bought that. But I don't care, because it basically it's like buying, stealing goods, okay? So the defense, the defense, right, for the Grand Theft Auto stuff, the sold assets, the defense is that, no, we bought it for some other guy, but that guy stole it. So that's basically it's like going to an illegal place, buying something illegal, and say that, well, I don't commit the crime, that guy did the crime, but you're still driving the stolen car from the guy. Yeah, but I didn't steal, he stole it. It was like, but that's not really a defense, okay? Like, you can't just buy something illegal for someone else and be like, well, but this means you're both. This means you're a part of an accomplishment of a crime. Yeah, that's not an argument. But anyway, sorry for the long-winded rant here. Maybe you just like it. Leave a comment below. But now then, let's talk about Project Svalbard. I want to explain to you what it is, right? I'm sorry. I don't know. Honestly, this is personal to me. I want this thing to be talked about. I keep saying it because this is ridiculous, right? This is ridiculous. But like I said, though, to be fair, I wouldn't expect them to like not have found this company in the past, right? Before all the scandal now then, of course. But the issue, as I say, is that they obviously keep funding them, right? Unless the government, unless someone actually calls down a politician, be like, well, how can you fund this terrible garbage thing, right? They're not gonna stop funding them, right? And the result, of course, regardless of how good this game is or whatever, right, is that this company, which is basically living on tax money, right? So this company can keep doing the worst mistakes ever and still get founded, right? You know what I mean? And obviously, I've been a game, developer many years. Imagine if I got this money, right? I could actually make you a good game that actually would be enjoyable, right? And I'm not even talking about like the politics of it, left to right, up and down. I'm talking about mechanic-wise, Because Dustborn is also a terrible game, right? And it's actually a terrible game, No one else talks about that. But I will admit, I haven't played the game because I'm not insane. But obviously I've seen, people that stream the game, right? And the actual gameplay of Dustborn is also really terrible. And I feel that, end of the day, right? If you ignore, end of the day, a game should be all about, how good is the actual gameplay, right? Think about that. No one talks about that. I mean, isn't it kind of funny that Dustborn seriously has an insanely bad gameplay? It's like a really bad, Telltale games, whatever narrative design, right? The combat in the game is atrocious, and it's really, yargy and yacky and everything. But because this game is so hated by everyone, or for obvious reason wise, it's either then hated because of its, art design and its writing and so on, or defended, of course, then by the loons, right? So I feel like no one talks about how bad this game is from an actual mechanic-wise. And it doesn't surprise me in a sense because the developer has only made basically story-driven games before, right? And I guess Dustborn is their first time trying to make a little more, action-based game, a little more game mechanics, right? Which is my own specialty. I'm usually a developer, in combat design. So this game is like, oh yeah, this is like terrible. Like the combat is just terrible. But no one even talks about that because everyone is so up in arms about everything else, right? Yeah, it's kind of fun thinking about that. It fails as a game, but whatever. I just want to point it out. Think about it. No one talks about that. Yeah, this game is just terrible. But anyway, let's talk about the actual game then, right? So Project Svalbard is image here. This is actually the first newspaper I could find about this. This is on the Norwegian NRK. It's basically BBC, whatever, in Norway. So they're interviewing Ragnar then, from Project Games director, right, about this game, and you can see that's basically about a woman. Of course, the main character is a woman with her animal. The animal is called lynx in the text, but that's clearly like a bear. A lynx is, a lukat, it's a cat, so confusing, but whatever. And she's basically taking place at this place then, Svalbard. So Svalbard is an island up north out of Norway's coastline. You can see it here. It's actually quite far away from Norway, and actually a pretty big island. So I have to give them credit though, as an actual game ID. This could be interesting because there is this like seed lab on Svalbard where they have like every seed of every plant and the DNA and stuff like that. And the point, of course, is that if something was destroyed, there was a kind of zombie apocalypse. So the idea is that there's a kind of female badass with her animal companion fighting some kind of apocalyptic monsters, right, like zombies or whatever, on this distant Norwegian island, right? And you're like the only survivor or something. So it sounds way more action-packed than the previous games. So that sounds kind of weird. And also, on the website, the actual address is like Let's Survive Together. It's not called Project Svalbard if you go into the HTML of it. So it sounds like a survival multiplayer or something, but I very much doubt that. And they've been working on this game then for what I can tell 8 years, maybe even more than that. And of course, keep saying it is founded by the Norwegian government and also the European government. So if you read the article on NRK, again NRK then is like the Norwegian, broadcasting, like state broadcasting, they are saying that this game has so far received just under 1 million Norwegian kroners, which is about like $100,000, a little more than that, I guess. But this is again like in the beginning. Okay, this is many years ago, and the Norwegian government has keep founding this game, and this is the first like seed money, right? The first founding of it. And just like Dustborn, after they've got this money from the Norwegian government, they had then be getting also European money, right? So this game has been founded by both Norwegian and European government. So if you look at the website, you can see that it's co-founded by the Creative European Media Program of the European Union and again the Norwegian Film Institute. This is the same tax money that went to Dustborn, right? Norwegian Film, same people that pay for Dustborn. They're also being paid by this called Epic Mega Grants, and they're also owned by the Chinese government. So if you're gonna be really specific here, they're also being founded by Chinese government tax money. It's also funded in this game. And I have to put out here, people don't know that, is that Norway is not part of the European Union, actually, right? So it's kind of funny, actually, how they keep getting founded by also the European Union. It's one thing that obviously, like, okay, the Norwegian, like, very, very, like, left-leaning, creative culture ministry pays for these games, okay, fine. But, yeah, it's also interesting that even, like, the European money also goes here, because normally Norway has been very much like, no, we can stay on our own, right? Because Norway is a very rich country, all the oil and so on, right? So they don't want to be part of the European Union. They don't want to have the European currency, the euros, all right, and which makes sense. And I think that's a good idea because yes, Norway is a very rich country, as a singular country, and and normally the reason that Norway doesn't want to be part, right, of the European Union is because they don't want to send the tax money to, Hungary and so on. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I don't know. It's like it's a kind of evilness funny to it. Norway has been asked 20 years now, like, can you please join the European Union? And they're like, nah, we don't want to send our money to like those East Europeans. But if those East Europeans send money to our terrible games, yeah, like it's just sad. But anyway, so this game is then obviously then founded and completely driven, right, by European tax money in general then, obviously. Norway is in Europe as a continent, but it's not part of the European Union. I feel everyone thinks that. Talked about Norway. they think that Norway is part of the European Union, which I guess you would assume so, right? Given that Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and so on is part of it. Oh my god, this game is being founded by European, Norwegian, and Chinese tax money. I'm not even joking, because it's literally it's Chinese tax money, okay? Epic is owned 40% by the Chinese, right? And they give out this mega grant to people then. I would argue for primarily because they want this game to only be released on the Epic launcher. That's what we've seen in the past for this thing. So I'm assuming that when Project Svalbard comes out, it won't be for Steam then, obviously. It's going to be for Epic launcher instead of Steam and so on. Now, I do want to point out here that Dreamfall, the game that these developers made at Funcom before they then created Red Thread Games, are also founded by the Norwegian government to some extent. And now these games did sell at least some copies, and they were, genuinely more successful and better games, right? So they were genuinely better games. But still, though, it's like, looking into this thing now, it's clear to me that the Norwegian tax money has been going to these people for over 10 years, right? Which is kind of crazy about it, that these people would never have a career at all unless if the government kept funding them, right? And I also want to put out here, I think it's interesting now digging into this stuff, right? And I keep saying that, I'm a game developer, I know people in the industry and blah blah so on, right? But the thing is that I have actually never really cared about these games. Just to be frank here, I never cared about Dreamfall, I never cared about Dragon or whatever. The reason why, of course, because they're terrible games. No, but seriously, I'm a hardcore gamer, right? I love playing games like whatever, Elden Ring. I play Wukong right now. I'll beat it soon probably. I like playing old school games like Ogre Battle or whatever, right? And mostly play RPGs. But basically, I like games with a lot of gameplay mechanics should be the winner, right? Obviously, Elden Ring has interesting lore and storyline, backstories, but I'm playing it for the game mechanics, the boss fights, you know what I mean? So I have genuinely never been interested in Dreamfall or any other games that these developers made for the last 15 years or whatever, because to me they're all just really boring, light novel games or whatever, text-based games primarily, you know what I mean? So it has been a discovery for me now, learning about Dreamfall. So obviously I heard about the game, but I never played it. But now then, when I've been researching this thing, and sorry if it's a long story here, but my point is that now when I've been researching this thing, it's so crazy to me too, because I keep finding posts like this. Obviously, I keep finding stuff like this. I keep finding people complaining that even Dreamfall, this is back. This game was released over 10 years ago, yeah. Or there are more than one chapters, but you got a point. This game has been released way back, right? Way back, and already people complaining about this game, that it was super, all left wing, this thing and that thing, and it was racist and so on. So this is I don't know how to describe it, but it's interesting, the whole conceptual idea, right, of a rabbit hole, right? Because when Dustborn was released, that is the dumbest shittiest game ever, right? And then, oh my god, is my tax money is going to Dustborn. I'm like, oh, this is personal now. Okay, let's go into it, right? And like I was saying, earlier this week we learned about that the lead developer, the director, right, has said some really weird stuff about babies and so on. Obviously link for that my video. But then I'm also going into the Dreamfall forum, and people are saying that Dreamfall is racist and Dreamfall is propaganda. And it's like seriously, this guy has been a crazy loon for over a decade, right? And like I said in my other video, he was incredibly obviously racist against white men, right, in 2015. And that's before Trump won, right? So there's no way he's a more reasonable person now. And like I said in my first video, I know people that know him very well, people that work at Funcom. I know a lot of people work for Funcom. Funcom, again, is the only big game company in Norway. Basically, if you have worked at Funcom, you know everyone in Norway that does video games, basically. So everyone has told me he's the whole studio is crazy, Antifa, basically. Yeah, I'm not just like, no. And I think it's important to point out here, these people aren't just like left-wing propaganda, no, they're alt-left, you know. I like the term alt-left. I think it's better than using the word woke, honestly. Because woke for me is like, let's look into that. My point is that this is where these kind of baby comments come from, right? When someone writes to him like, oh yeah, maybe we should go and drown babies, he's like, yeah, you know. And like I said in that video, I don't think he actually means it, right? I don't think he actually is like literally wants it to happen. But these people are so like revolutionary left, right? That they're not woke anymore. They're going into that like, you know, this like, nah. And the thing is that, and this could be some other video, I'm sorry if I'm just blabbing out here, because this really pisses me off, this whole thing, right? And genuinely makes me very emotional, this whole thing. It's like, I'm really angry with this thing. Like, it just makes me really, really upset, right? Knowing that this has been tax money founded for at least a decade. Yeah, this has been, because like I keep saying, it's a rabbit hole. The more I go into this thing, the more I see what a terrible people these people are, and what a terrible games they made for over a decade. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 games, right? And every game has been tax founded by Norway. You're like, oh my god, you know? And then you learn that, oh, this next game, even though they keep making terrible games, even though Dustborn is a terrible, terrible game, are they still getting more money to make this Svalbard game? I'm like, oh my god, like, please, can you stop it, please? This is crazy, you know? It's just be crazy. But anyway, what I was coming to is that the thing is that I used to work for basically the Swedish version of Red Hat Games. I used to work for a very, very far left-leaning game studio, and all the founders were like crazy, like Antifa members, like literally, like one of them literally was a proud AFA member that in Sweden, so Antifa. Many times when I say, oh, here's like a really bad example happened to me in the game industry, right? It's usually from that company, right? And maybe I'm also, I don't know, I'm just reflecting now, but maybe I'm also just like getting more and more, you know, personally like, oh my god, what is this Svalbard? How can I get more money, right? Because that company was, I could just imagine working at this game. I can imagine working with these crazy developers, right? Because what happens, of course, is that company, and this obviously could be another video, but very, very briefly here, that company was owned by another company, another country, so they were not owned by a Swedish company whatsoever, but they were founded by Sweden and were bought by another country. So it's about 30 developers in Sweden, so they're working there, right? And all the founders then were all like alt-left, like extremely left-leaning. We're talking like they're vegan, and they're vegan clubs, so they keep mentioning they're vegan to all the time, and so on, etc. What happens is that, of course, they tend to hire who they see as themselves, right? So most of them keep hiring. So what happens is that, obviously, this creates an echo chamber, and this is not a new thing to say here, right? But if you have the 4 founders, if they're all like extremely, extremely left-leaning, they're mostly gonna hire other people, right, that are obviously extremely left-leaning, and that leads into you having like 20 or so of 30 people, right, at least, that are all extremely left, right? They're all a little left, and that's kind of where a lot of my, you know, in this case specifically here, I'm just like, oh my god. Working at this place must be dread, man. Imagine working at Red Hat Games. It must be the same thing there. They're gonna have, they're like, you know, they're like a smaller studio, but they're gonna have like 80 or so percent are gonna be like crazy loony left, right? And I want to put out here, you know, I have no problem with people being, you know, voting left, right? I have no problem with people voting like Democrats or whatever, right? This isn't like a Democrat versus Republican, whatever. The problem, of course, is people that are extreme, right? And I always say this thing, I'm a big fan of the horseshoe theory. But if you're extreme enough, it doesn't matter. You're extreme left, extreme right, it's the same thing, yeah. So basically, I'm saying that I can imagine working in this company, and your boss, the owner of the company, hates you. He's like, you're a white man, yeah. Every time you go to work, he's like, you're a white man, right? Yeah, he's sitting there like hating on you because you're white, and everyone he hired are white because he's in Norway. So it's like 95% of the employees are white. He's like, I hate all of you, yeah, all the time, and he complains about how disgusting you are. And at the julbord, the Christmas table, julebord, yeah, Christmas table, table, he's gonna be all like, oh, you shouldn't be allowed to eat food. You should give the food to the poor black women instead in Africa and so on. Because the thing is that, right, I have so many stories about working for Swedish retro games, basically, that every time, I laugh about it now, though, this is over 10 years ago, but it's crazy because I know how these people are. Like, every time they have a chance to say something that is like, basically it's the whole vegan club meme, right? Every time they can say something about, oh, it's bad to eat meat, they will say it, right? So for example, I'll give you one story video, guys, but this is how I imagine this work at this company, right, at Dustborn. So we had this called julebord or julborden, which is Christmas table. This is a huge tradition in Sweden, Norway, and so on, Denmark, Scandinavia generally. You have this huge Christmas buffet, right, where everyone eats, and it's a huge thing in Scandinavia. It's a massive thing in Norway and so on, that the company has to have a julebord. Yeah, the company has to pay for that, right, and bring all the employees, and you have a huge party, and it's like a huge thing in December every year, right? And however, in Norway, you also have reduced taxes in December, so you can make more money to buy gifts and so on. Yeah, so julebord is a huge thing in Norway. Okay, so when I'm working in this game company, which is super far left, right, going to this place, julebord, immediately it's so this is how they are. They're so cringe. So when we get to the julebord, and it's all fine, we get food and so on, right? But after we eat them, we're gonna have these like games. We're gonna like have some kind of quiz tournament against other companies, and so every employee is like 5 per team, whatever, and all the other teams, my team then, all had this like really weird cringy name, like Palestine, free Palestine. It's names like that. Yeah, everyone has like names like that, and because we're a game company, right? So I am the leader of my team. So I'm like, we're team number 1. Yeah, we're like Ichigo. Yeah, I'm just like, we're the best. Yeah, so my name, I'm sorry, but I'm a simple man. My names are like team number 1, the winners, strongest, mightiest guys, Hydra, kill one of us too, I'm going mythology, I'm going like Chaos, Hydra, baby, I'm going into that, right? And all the other teams of my company, they're all are like Free Palestine, this thing, white people are evil, yeah, they all have those names, straight up. One of the names is straight up like, what people should do this thing or something, should step aside and so on, yeah, and my team is like, Chaos, Hydra, power up. This is a true story. I will give you a true story. That's how it is to work at a giant, super left-leaning, like Scandinavian, company, and you are a normal person, and especially if you're a gamer, right? Like, I'm just like, trying to come up with a cool game name. Luckily, we won, of course, because we're better than them, right? We're actual gamers, but that's how it is, right? Like, and there's also, as a side note, why I have absolutely zero faith, right, in Project Svalbard. Because at the end of the day, when you talk about this kind of games, right, I think it's very important to understand is that these games will always be terrible. They're not terrible because this idea is bad, because I actually think this idea is pretty good. I mean, obviously the whole like symbol behind her is actually the seed house at Svalbard. So the actual conceptual idea of some kind of zombie apocalypse or some similar dystopia, right? Frostpunk, something like that, right, at Svalbard, it actually is a good idea. The problem though, and why this game will absolutely miserably fail, right? Because this is Dustborn developers, but seriously, this game will fail miserably because these developers are spending all the day long, right, complaining about white men and Asian people they hate, right? Like this guy, instead of thinking about what's a good game mechanic, right, at the office, he's like, oh, this is a good game mechanic. He's looking at his coworker being like, that guy's a white guy. How do I fire that white guy? That is literally what the developer is thinking, instead of thinking, how do I make a good game, right? So when I worked for a very similar company, same thing there, right? I'm sitting there as a lead game designer being like, oh, this is a fun game experience, guys. I'm gonna make a boss fight, this is happening, it's gonna be really fun. And my boss is like, have you read the latest article about women in gaming? I'm like, no, I haven't, because I've been spending the day inventing this cool boss encounter. It's gonna be really fun. He's like, yeah, but what do you think about this issue with, that we have to hire more black people in this company? I'm like, I don't care, okay? Is this a good game or not? Is this a good game mechanic? It's like, so you don't care about black people? No, I care about black people. My wife is black. I'm just saying that this game mechanic is what I'm caring about right now. You know what I mean? This is a little thing happened to me too. Like, That's how they are, and that's why this game will 100% absolutely fail, because they never care about the actual game mechanics. Like my story there from that Christmas table it's a true story, and that's just kind of the mentality, right? We coming in there, we're gonna have a quiz tournament, and like I said, my team that I'm leading, and obviously you can say what we're winning for, because my team, right, is obviously the guys we have with actual brains, you know what I mean? Because I wanna win, I'm a game, let's go, right? And the people that joining my team are obviously gonna be people that are kind of similar to me, right? You know, they're not gonna be these crazy left-leaning alt whatever communists or whatever, right? They're gonna be like normal, you know, developers that probably knows that me and they have a similar, you know, I guess political take on anything. Honestly, I would say non-political. And they're gonna join me, right? And we are there to actually kick some ass and win, right? So we're doing actually good at all the different like company tournaments or whatever, right? Same thing, we had like an Overwatch tournament company, for example, right? We also won that. Why did we win that? Well, because our team, my 6-man team, right, we spent time training together playing Overwatch for a few weeks, and the other guys were like, you know, arguing who has the correct skin color or whatever. We were training Overwatch. Like, I mean, literally, this is literally how it is. Yeah, we are spending time actually preparing for the tournament, and then the other guys like fighting about, you know, some stupid thing that no one actually cares about. Yeah, which has no value in reality, right? So that's how it is, right? Like my team is coming in there thinking that, okay, yeah, we're gonna win, let's call something cool, okay, we're gonna call it Chaos Highland number 1, yeah, we're gonna be like the ultimate animal, right? And the other guys are like, what is the current year's political thing about something, yeah. And this obviously was before the war that it happening currently, but they basically took a name like that, yeah, at that year. They were basically like, yeah, Free Palestine, but obviously at that current year. So it was like whatever, you know, was the hashtag at that month, right? And you're like, yeah, great. So that's the mentality, right? And I keep saying it, but this is what this game is gonna fail, okay? This game is gonna miserably fail because these developers are not trying to make a game, right, you know? They're gonna try to just think about how much they hate white people, mostly, right? And also apparently Asians, so yeah, that's also good. Who are the people that makes majority games? White people and Asians, yeah. No wonder they hate them, because they're actually good games. But also, I said earlier, right, it's also the combination. So this game is gonna fail because of what I said, right? But also the combination of they are, you know, tax founded, right? And being tax founded probably also makes you weak. It makes you meek, right? If anything, a better word for it, meek, yeah. Because I mean, another experience I have from the game industry, and it's a very common experience, ever has experience, is there's a very, I don't know if stress is the right word, I'll give you that, but it is a very, pressured work, right? Because you kind of know that if you fail this game, you're gonna go bankrupt, right? Everyone kind of knows that when you work in the game industry, if you make a video game and it fails, it miserably fails. It miserably fails. Like it's a really, really terrible game. That there is no way, right, you will have money to make a new game. You know what I mean? And that also obviously makes these Dustborn developers pathetically weak, or again, meek, I suppose. Because they're gonna act meek, right? They're gonna act like they don't have to concern themselves with making a good game, because they are being paid, but apparently Chinese money, European tax money, and Norwegian tax money. And if you're being founded by three, I guess European is several kinds, but yeah, you're being founded by 3 different governmental institutions, you are fine, you know. You can make the worst games ever made and have no concern that anyone actually enjoys your game, no concern no one ever is gonna buy your game, because you know that, well, my next project is being paid by these governments anyway, and so I'm pushing the agenda, whatever, right? These people in the government that agree with my agenda are gonna give me my money anyway, and then of course it becomes pushing the agenda instead. That being said, though, they still probably should have found them. I mean, as I said last time, guys, even if you are, I think it's just kind of funny, because even if you are, so to speak, far left, right? Even if you're like a far lefty in the Norwegian government and you want to found like Dustborn, right? Because you agree with the actual political statement of the game, so to speak, you still shouldn't found Dustborn. It's just so terrible. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of people I talked to literally thought that Dustborn, right, was a parody made by the right, because they're making fun of the left, right? But no, it's an actual, left-wing project. but it's just so bad that no one takes it real, right? So even if you are like a really, really crazy left, like a far left crazy person in the government in Norway, you still shouldn't pay for this, because you're like, wait, how does it benefit you? You're just making your own side look stupid. Yeah, like, no, you should still not pay for it. Like, honestly, that's something that just drives me kind of mad, so to speak, too, right? And this is not only for the left, and it's also for the right, of course, but it's sort of funny. Anytime I see any like political stuff happening, regardless of the side, and I'm just like, how does this benefit you? Is it better to say nothing? I guess it's kind of like those people that are like stop oil and so on, that, you know, are gluing themselves to their roads or whatever, and most people just hate them, and they don't actually care about whatever, you know, stop oil. They're actually gonna do the opposite. They're gonna buy more oil to piss them off. Yeah, that doesn't work. There's no proof that it's working whatsoever. Doing those kind of activism just make people dislike you and your cause, so you have less just lose, you know, people's support instead. That's what every evidence points to, that those activism like stop oil and similar stuff like that, like when the attacks that Stone Age and so on, right? Yeah, that just makes people you know, lose faith in your cause and support you and so on, and people might do what you don't want in spite, right? So it's just like, that doesn't work, and that's kind of what I feel Dustborn at best is at, right? It's like an opposite activist game, but it's not gonna make anyone change their mind, right? Absolutely not. If anything, it's to make people on the left be right wing instead. Yeah, if anything, it's gonna convert them to the other side, because you're gonna be exposed how ridiculous some of their beliefs are, right? And again, I'm trying to be apolitical here. I'm trying to not pick a side, but I'm just saying that the only thing I can see Dustborn accomplishing from a political standpoint is to actually drive people away from the left, because it's such a incredible cringe. They're gonna be like, it's less often. I mean, seriously, Dustborn probably makes people vote for Trump. Yeah. They hate Trump so much, but Dustborn probably makes people vote for him more than less is that. Because, you know, you're like, oh my god, these people, I don't want to be on this side. Yeah, like seriously, the people are probably like, no, I'm gonna go over here instead. Yeah, like, no, I don't want to bother this thing anymore. But anyway, guys, long video, a little bit ranty, but I guess I want to get my emotions out, right? Because I'm just so tired of seeing tax money being wasted for this thing. And like I said earlier, the more I, you know, go into the rabbit hole that is this whole company, the more I see how just terrible it is. They because this game is Svalbard here isn't the only game paid by tax money. Dragon, right? Dragon, it's also paid by tax money. Dreamfall, also paid by tax money, right? They've been founding the whole company. Like, all their games are basically just tax money, and all the games are terrible. I mean, you can say that they have better game mechanics perhaps than Dustborn or whatever. That's an argument. But what I have understood, at least, and I keep saying it, I have to play the games, but what I understand from reading all the comments and looking at clips and so on, all these games are extremely propaganda driven, right? They're extremely, you know, alt-lefty, all of them. So the government's been paying for basically propaganda, which are, again, propaganda against themselves, because this guy hates white people. So he's like so far detached from reality, right? This director, that he's against, he hates the Norwegian government. So it's not even like a reasonable stand whatsoever. That's why I keep saying it too earlier. Like, I hope this actually becomes like an actual news in Norway, similar to Jan Vasken. There was a thing a few years ago about a guy that was like exposing these, like, I don't know, I'll say crazy pressers with gender stuff. But basically, it was like this comedian that exposed them, and they become this huge issue in Norway, how they were lying about science and so on, right? This, of course, here would be a less of an issue, but still, it's like, why should tax money go to the most far extremist viewpoint? Because at one point, right, in Norway, you're not allowed to give tax money to like extremist causes, right? If someone has like a religious group of people that are extreme, they can't get tax money, because they can't have some, they're not allowed to have certain extreme views, right? As a group, to get tax money. And I would argue easily that this game director here, he is very extreme views, as in my baby video I did earlier this week. His views are extremely extreme, and I know that he didn't actually. I keep saying, I know he literally didn't mean it. He meant it more like a whatever. But that is a very, very extreme viewpoint he has, because he keeps writing that he wants white people to be gone. He was like, oh, less white people. I mean, he's written many times how much he disdains white people, right? And obviously, if you change the word white to like black or something, right, then he would probably be in jail for hate crime, seriously. Like, seriously, he probably go to hate crime jail. Texts are so insanely racist that if you change it to any other race, he probably go to jail for that. His texts are so crazy that, and now then when I got into his previous games, and they're all the same, yeah, it's just like, oh my god, it's like 10 years of rambling insanity, right? And it's just like, wow. And I say this thing, and I want to be very frank about it, right? We have crazy people all the time, right, on the internet. We have all these like woke developers and so on, right? But thing, for example, we have Concord. Concord massively failed, right? Concord is a massive failure. Obviously, Concord is economically a worse failure than Dustborn, obviously. Dustborn clearly has lost less money than Concord, right? That is true. And in that sense, Sony has a bigger mistake, right, than the Norwegian government. However, I can choose to invest into Sony or not. And I literally have sold my Sony stocks. I used to have Sony stocks. I sold them literally because I was tired of Sony in the West doing terrible games. Sony in Japan doing great stuff, Sony in America doing terrible stuff. I had the choice, right, to not be invested into Sony and Concord, right? And that obviously was a correct choice here. I have to be invested in Svalbard. I don't have the choice that my tax money can't go to these terrible, insane games like Dustborn and Svalbard. Think about that, you know what I mean? That is so crazy. This company is a miserable failure. They keep making games that are terrible, and they have been tax funded for the last 5 games they made by European Union, Norwegian tax money, and I paid also Chinese tax money, right? And I can't go away from that, right? It's my tax money going to this company. It's my father's, my mom's, my sister's, you know. It's my family's tax money goes company. We can invest into Sony or not. So I think it is a huge difference. Yes, Concord is a bigger failure, like money-wise, like pure money, absolutely. Dustborn is also obviously a failure economically, right, for the company and publishers. But for Sony, Concord has lost way more money, right? But again, Sony is a private company. If a private company want to go, as say, you know, go woke or broke, that's fine, right? But for me, it's much more disturbing when we have the Norwegian government going broke, so to speak. Of course, now Norwegian government is very rich. The oil money is very rich. But in theory, at least, this is way worse when a country is going woke broke. Yeah, it's like, no, can you please stop doing that? Yeah, like, and I think this is a much bigger issue with Dustborn and then the next game, Svalbard. Because, like, but I don't want to pay for this stuff. And end of the day, right, I keep saying this, it really makes me upset because we all know that this money instead could go to schools, it could go to hospitals, right, or you can help sick kids or whatever, right? Like, pretty obviously, they're going to some kind of far, extreme, radical Antifa. Pay for welfare stuff, and so on, right? No one wants this stuff, right? No one wants this stuff. It's just so annoying. And it drives me, I guess, crazy in the sense that, you know, the last game, I keep saying it, but yeah, the last game now that has failed so incredibly miserably, yet they're still gonna get more money from the government. You're like, if anything, they probably even get more money, because now, you know, they didn't make any money on Dustborn, right? Which means that they need more funding from the government, so this probably will result in getting even more money, which is crazy when you think about it. It's sad, right? But anyway, that's it, guys. I don't know, weird video, candid video. I've been thinking about the video for like since last week, and I've been researching this stuff and so on, and I'm sitting here spitballing my aggression against wasting tax money. But I don't know, I have always been, I guess, generally pro like small government but powerful government. And I mean powerful, I mean, like, I always thought that we should have a lot of tax money, you know, for like police, military, stuff that we need for a country, right? And especially now, of course, current events in you know, happening in Europe, I have no problem if the Norwegian government's like, we have to build another submarine, we have to build, you know, these battleships because, you know, we're close to a certain country. But okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, let's just build that. Yeah, that makes sense. But seeing money going to this stuff is just crazy, right? And I think you have to understand too, people perhaps listening outside of Norway and in Scandinavia, is that the taxes are incredibly higher. Sweden, I believe, is the highest tax country in the world, right? And Norway is like number 2 or number 3 or something. Yeah, so it's like Denmark. It's like Scandinavia is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like yeah, and it really becomes an issue, I think, for Scandinavians, and obviously this is a reason why certain political parties are on the rise, right, in Sweden and so on, especially Sweden, because of other issues. Because people in Scandinavia has been used to government doing the good stuff, doing the correct stuff, listening to their vision head, and then paying tax money. I mean, I grew up as a kid, and people said like paying taxes are cool and so on. It's very different than America, in other countries where you're trying to pay. Yeah, here in Scandinavia, it's much more like paying taxes is a good thing to do, and it's very, very like state oriented, right? But that only works as long as the state actually does the correct stuff, right? And that belief only works as long as people actually believe in the government doing the correct stuff. And then, of course, with recent issues, especially in Sweden, people are losing faith in the government, right? But this kind of stuff, to me, actually genuinely makes me lose faith in the government. Because, I mean, like I said, my only like, as so to speak, hope is that they don't give them more money, right? I can understand, like I said earlier, that obviously their money they have been given to this Svalbard has been before the failure of Dustborn, right? That is true. So hopefully, right, they stop giving the money after Dustborn now, after the miserable failure. But I keep saying, I don't think so. I actually think they gotta give them more money, right? Because they need more money now. So it's gonna be the opposite effect. It's gonna be some incredible negative thing. Instead of the government saying that, oh, you made the most shittiest game ever with a racist product, and the boss of this game has been exposed as an insane racist and so on, so no one is buying this game. Instead of being like, okay, we can't found these people anymore because they're cray-cray, they're gonna give them more money because they have sold like one copy of the first game, so they have to have more money now as they can't finish this game, It's gonna be so sad. Oh, God. I hate things so much. I will say one thing here, though. Hope you guys subscribe, pass the like button or whatever. But I do say one thing here, though. I'll say one thing here again to defend the Norwegian government. Okay, at least this game, and this other thing is very fair to say. At least in this game, they are making it very Norway, right? I can at least understand why the government would say that, oh, this sounds like a cool idea. Again, Svalbard, the seed stuff. In theory, this game, like premise-wise, it's about Norway, right? It's about Norwegian culture. So I can at least understand why the government would pay for this game. Dustborn, as I talked about last week, Dustborn is seemingly a complete scam, right? Because the government thought they were going to get a Norwegian game, They didn't think they were paying for some anti-Trump game in America. That didn't make any sense. Because at least normally they will found movies and then games then take place in Norway, right? So at least I understand why this film institution in Norway, why they would pay for this game rather than Dustborn, because it takes place in Svalbard, again an island in Norway, right? Not in north of Norway. So I will give the government credit for that at least. This game, if you can found, if they have to found one game, okay, we have to give like 10 millions to either Svalbard or Dustborn. Obviously, this game is the one you should give it to. That I will say to the government. Okay, that actually makes more sense. So in that part, but it's still just like, how can you keep giving people the money? There are so many bad games, and like I said earlier, again, premise-wise, this game actually sounds pretty could be good, right? But I have never seen this company ever make an actual good game. And I mean as in game mechanics, right? I mean as in combat system. I mean as in the fights, as in, animation, whatever, at one point. I don't think they have it in them for a second, right? So I have, that's like a side note, whatever, and I guess all weirdness of the left stuff, but no, I don't think they're gonna be able to make like an actual good survivor game against zombies or whatever, right? Because again, they have never actually made a good combat design ever. Which, if you understand what I said earlier, I hope you do. Yeah, I hope you can understand where I'm coming from. The game, I play every genre. To be fair, I play all genres, but I think you can understand why my favorite games tend to be combat heavy, and also probably in a sense why perhaps I don't then like, as I explained in my own experience, then a reason why I don't like these like very political leaders, right, at a company, and it has nothing to do with left. It could be extreme right as well, right? It's because I care about the game mechanics, right? And game mechanics for me is always the first thing. Storyline, premise, aesthetics, that all that is coming later. Right? The game mechanics are what actually makes the game, you know what I mean? The actual game experience. Everything else is just a fluff and illusion at the end of the day, right? And I don't know, as I pointed out, that's in my brain I'm always like analyzing games bottom up, right? I'm also looking at the bottom mechanics, and then I'm looking at the storyline, that stuff, right? And of course, don't get me wrong, a game can have an amazing story, and that can be really important, right? You know, I love JRPGs, right? I'm a huge JRPG fan. I have my Nier here, you know. I have Nier Automata here, you know, on this stick, right? Got Kane and A2 there on my stick, so obviously I love JRPGs. It's my favorite genre, basically, of all time. Yeah, speaking here, but a JRPG, of course, has great storyline and also a lot of fights, right? You know, a lot of combat, right? For fantasy, whatever, they have a lot of fights all the time, right? And they have a good storyline. That's like the best. You want to have it both, right? So yeah, I don't know. I don't have much faith in a company that has so far only made, you know, story-based games, suddenly making some kind of survival, apocalyptic, zombie, something game, dystopian. Again, we don't know for sure, right? I talked to my sources about this game, I read about the news, we don't know exactly what they're making, and it's taken them years to. But whatever, long story, guys, what do you guys think about the video? This became kind of ranty, I don't know, but I am really, really angry over this thing, wasting tax money, right? I really am, and I always been against that. Like I said, there's movies too, right? So this pisses me off, and it just breaks, like I said earlier, the contract of society, that if you do something that miserably fails, like Dustborn, you probably shouldn't be allowed to do it again. You know what I mean? Maybe it sounds harsh, but you get my point. It's like, we probably shouldn't give more money to these guys after they wasted the first 10 million we gave them. Yeah, you probably should do it again. Right? It's kind of like the government should, in some extent, act as a capitalistic venture capital, right? Okay, I can give people money, but if they fail to invent whatever they're doing, I probably won't give them more money, right? I give money to someone else. Yeah, it's like, no, I'm gonna... Because, I mean, best case scenario, right, when it comes to this, the government investing into game companies, well, can you pick an actual game company that makes good games then? Like, give me the money instead. Is that the whole video? Give me the money instead, government, and you get some good games. No, but seriously, like, yeah, like, find a goddamn company that makes like a Wukong game in Norway or something, yeah, like an actual fun gameplay mechanics, you know? Like, that would be fun, yeah, like... But of course you won't. They're gonna invest into these, you know, extreme radical people, because again, right, the people that are working at these places that give out the money are also radical. As it would work to begin with, yeah. That's just how it is, right? And that is how it is, unfortunately. No one else basically works at like the culture industry, unless if you also are a crazy person to begin with. But anyway, guys, hope you liked the video. What do you guys think? A little more personal, I feel now. But I'm just so sick and tired of this thing now. And yes, it definitely does affect me more, absolutely, when I know that this is tax money being wasted, right? I keep saying it, an unbroken record, but compared to the Concord, for example, right, or whatever other game, Last of Us 2 or whatever, it was more woke games, people doesn't like Spider-Man 2 or whatever, yeah. I don't care, right, you know, Marvel's owned by Disney or whatever, yeah, it's like, it doesn't affect me personally. Obviously, I could have stock or whatever, but it doesn't really care. It's like no one is forcing you to invest in Disney, right? No one is forcing you to have Sony stocks or whatever, but you can't get away from paying taxes. I have to move. Like, yes, let's you move. Anyway, so you guys have a great day.